YouTubes, how are you all doing? I hope you're all well. Thanks for tuning in and welcome back to the channel. This is my first video for a little while, recording wise. I've been away, so I've had a little bit of a break, and the footage I had about 4 jobs worth of footage on my memory card, and it crashed. I had an error on it, and I've tried to retrieve it. I've tried some programs and software to retrieve it, and I can't seem to retrieve it. And I'm pretty gutted, to be honest with you, because one of the jobs was a subscriber's job. So one of my subscribers, Vince, who comments on all my videos and watches all my videos, he bought his car to us for us to repair. And yeah, it's quite an extensive bit of work to do on it as well. It was a lovely Jaguar XKR, and I've lost all the footage of it, and I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted, but I am going to see if I can still retrieve it somehow. I did manage to retrieve some bits, and I had a handful of other jobs as well, a Porsche 911 and a bit of an old school one, which I had colour issues with, and it was, well, in my eyes, it was quite good content that I've lost, but it is what it is. I see what I can do. But anyway, I just want to give Vince, one of my subscribers, I just want to give him a shout out to say sorry I haven't got the footage for the work on your vehicle, and to say thank you for watching our videos and then coming to us to do your car as well. Yeah, I'm very grateful for that. So thank you, Vince, and this is a shout out to Vince. So anyway, this video is it's a Porsche Boxster front bumper. It's a bit of an old Porsche, and it's coming for, it had all flaking paint on it. So the car's quite old. It's not in the best condition, but yeah, I haven't got any footage of that because Reese done this while I was away on holiday. Got all this stripped and prepped. But I've got some photos, so I'll stick some photos up of what it was like. It was just flaking off, so he jet washed off all the loose stuff as much as it would come off with the jet wash, and then he's give it a good sanding with 240 grit all over, feathered out where it's sticking. It's keyed up nice in these areas. So it's had a 240 grit all over, and then all the edges done with 320 and a red Scotch-Brite. So this video is going to be pretty much just a painting video, but I'll show you the primer and the preparation on the primer and then the painting. So yeah, so what I'm going to do to this bumper is it's all pretty much bare plastic, the majority of it. It always goes a little bit furry, even with finer grits. If you finished it off in 320, it always picks up the plastic a little bit, the primer, so it goes a little bit furry. But this is going to need some adhesion on there, so it's going to have a coat of Mipa Haftpromotor all over it, adhesion promoter, and then it'll have 3.5 coats of Mipa 4+1 high build primer, so the high build mixing ratio. And I'll be doing it in sort of a darkish grey for this colour blue. So yeah, I'll do a bit of footage of that. So yeah, going to get it all degreased. So key with bare plastic is you want to get it really clean to minimise any problems with adhesion. So I'll give it a really good degreasing with water degreaser first, dry that out, and then solvent degreaser, dry that out. And then yeah, coat of adhesion promoter. 1 light coat's plenty for that. The thing with adhesion promoters, you don't want to put it on there too wet, because it can lift and it loses its adhesion. You just want a light coat in there just to bite into that plastic. And then yeah, give that a good 10 minutes to dry really. Even though it dries really quick, it evaporates off the panel really quickly. You do want to give it a little bit of time, just to sort of evaporate completely off of the panel. So yeah, coat of adhesion promoter, and then half a coat of primer for the first coat, and then 3 wet coats of primer on that. So yeah, like I say, it's Mipa 4+1, the high build mixing ratio. And then yeah, the gun I put it on with my usual primer gun. It's a 100B with this got a 1.8 setup on it, so it's quite a hot, heavy setup. But you can get a nice good build of primer with that setup. So that, yeah, that'll be the gun that I'll be putting it on with. So that being said, I'll get it all cleaned down, and we'll get some primer on it. that's the Porsche bumpers all prepped and ready to go. So I didn't get any footage of the preparation, but I'll talk you through it. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Just had a bit of a block and a machine dual action sander with 320 grit initially. So we always start the primer off, knock it down with 320 grit, and then it's been gone over again then with 500 grit DA. All the edges were 320 at the same time, and then 500 DA, and then 500 all around the edges. And I'm going to give this a coat of wet on wet. So I find on bumpers, especially with those soft pads, it's great doing dry sanding. And I've been doing dry sanding for years. You know, back in the day, everything was wet flatting, took a lot longer, but you can get a nicer scratch with wet flatting. And I am going to start doing it again a bit more because, like I say, it's great dry sanding, and the primers, most primers now, they're designed to be dry sanded because they're porous. So if you're wet flatting stuff, you're going to suck a bit of water into that primer as well, and it's messy, can be messy wet flatting. But I find doing edges, especially on bumpers, when you've got loads of little corners and stuff to do, where you haven't got water with your sandpaper, the dry pads that you use to do edges and stuff like that, they clog up really quickly with dust, and then you find that dust will then put little micro scratches in your primer. And I've noticed it a few times. It's real minimal, but especially high metallics, silvery colours, even finished off in 600 grit or even 800 grit sometimes, if you catch it at the right light, you can see little sanding scores. It's minimal. It's not like something that would stand out to the majority of people, but obviously us as painters with a painter's eye, we can see through the clear coat and see what's in the base coat, and you do get these little micro scratches from the dry sanding. So we're changing things up a little bit here. Like I say, I haven't done wet flatting for ages, so I haven't even got any wet flatting sandpaper. So we're going to start doing edges now wet and do them with 800 grit. Maybe we'll do them dry initially with 320 grit, just to get the bulk of the top surface of the primer off, and then we're going to start wet flatting. But now as well, rule of thumb is all bumpers, I've noticed these little scores quite a few times now. Some base coats might cover better than others, but I've noticed with my base coat Mipa, I can see little sanding scores in edges and stuff, because you're not going to get in everywhere with the DA. The DA gives you a better scratch, more consistent scratch, and doesn't show up on the metallics, but the hand sanding in edges and little nooks and crannies does show up. So we're going to start wet flatting edges now instead of dry sanding them, and I'm going to start wet and wetting all bumpers now as well, because you can end up getting breakthroughs as well on bumpers. This one's not too bad. Reese prepped this up, but you're always going to get little breakthroughs on bumpers, and it's just nice to get a nice sealing coat on there. So this is going to have a coat of wet on wet on it first, and I'm just going to be using Mipa 4+1, but they're wet and wet mixing ratio. There's another wet and wet that Mipa do, which is F37, which is a better wet and wet. It is better because it's a designated wet and wet, but it's more orientated for new panels because it's got better adhesion properties in that, and anti-corrosion properties in that wet and wet. So it's not really needed on the bumper because it's already been primed and sanded. So just one coat of Mipa 4+1 wet and wet, and your wet and wet is your foundation of all your other coats going on there. So you want that to be the smoothest and the best finish possible, and sometimes it can be quite hard to get that coat of wet on nice, flat and smooth and wet and consistent. If you don't get that one right and you try to put more on, then you're just opening a big can of worms of having a bad bottom surface for all your other layers to go on. That will influence what your clear coat looks like at the end, and how your base coat looks like in your clear as well. So it's been trial and error with me since I've had this system in, and it is with most paint systems and wet on wets. But the gun I use, and I bought this just for wet on wet because I was having trouble with it going on nice and smooth and flat. So this is like Sata's budget gun, and these are great guns. I know on my channel I don't show, for you DIYers and stuff like that, I don't show applications of my paints here with cheaper guns. So I'm sorry about that, but I can't show it because I haven't got cheaper guns, and where I'm doing the jobs for the person, I'm not just working for somebody. I've got to make sure my work's consistent all the time, because I can't afford comebacks. I can't afford to be trying out different stuff and maybe making some mistakes, or jobs not coming out to my satisfaction by trying other guns. It's too risky for me, because it costs me money if a job isn't quite right. So yeah, my channel really is always going to be the guns that I've got is Sata. So I'm sorry if people want me to show you with other spray guns, cheaper ones, which I would give them a go, but I'm not going to go out my way to get them, to be honest with you, because like I say, I want my work to stay consistent, and where I've honed in on all my guns with my products, I need it to be the same, because it's my business and it's my name on the job. So I haven't got that luxury of being able to experiment so much, but I will try to do what I can. But like I say, your techniques pretty much go across all your guns. You just get a bit of better tweaking of products with better quality guns and longevity, I suppose, with them. So anyway, a bit of waffling there, sorry. So wet on wet, I use these 1500Bs, and you know, if you're looking for a cheap gun but you want a top brand, these are a great buy. They're not that expensive. They're half the price. I can't remember exactly, but I think these are around £250, £300, something like that. So it's a 1500B. So they've sort of reintroduced it. It's the same body as like my 100B primer gun, and it's the same as like, where are they? I haven't got one here. Like sort of, I think it's a similar body to NR2000. I'm not too sure actually, but anyway. So they're 1500Bs. They do it in a HVLP and an RP. So HVLP for Basecoat. They're great for solvent Basecoat. So if any of you guys are, you're doing DIY stuff or just doing stuff for yourself, and you're obviously most of the time you're going to be using solvent, especially if you haven't got spray booth and stuff. So they do solvent Basecoat setups for it. So if you wanted this 1500B as a Basecoat gun, you buy it as a HVLP, and I'd probably recommend a 1.2 or 1.3 setup for solvent Basecoat. You can use it for water as well, which I'd say a 1.3 for water-based. Most water-based would be 1.3 in a HVLP. And then they do, again, it's 1500B but an RP, and they do it in 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. I'd probably recommend a 1.2 RP in this for clear coat, or you could just buy the one if you're doing solvent, base coat and clear coat. Just buy it as a HVLP, and you could use it for clear coat as well. But I would probably recommend getting the RP for top coats. You could use it clear coat and direct gloss as well. But I think they're a great value gun. They're Sata. They look quite good as well. And there's a lot of variety of tips and nozzle sizes and tips for this gun as well. And again, for wet on wet. So on this one, this is an RP, and it's got a 1.4 setup on this, which is it's great for getting a good wet flat coat on. So the Mipa 4+1 wet on wet, how I put it on, I have it full fluid, full fan, and then I turn the pressure up. They say around 1.9 to 2 bar pressure to use these. They sort of say 2 bar max on them, I think. No, they don't. They say 2.4 bar. So I put it on at about 2.2, 2.3 bar. So I up the pressure, makes the droplets in your spray, your overspray, makes the droplets smaller. So it goes on there a bit finer and a bit flatter. So yeah, 2.2 bar, full fan, full fluid, and just as soon as you start, just get that one wet coat on there. If If you get it on there a little bit dry or anything, then it's going to cause you issues. It's going to be a bit rough. So you want it on there as smooth as possible. So that's it. It's going on with this gun. I'm going to mix up the wet on wet. I'm going to do it in a dark grey because this is like a blue colour. I've already sorted the colour out. The whole front of that car's been painted. They painted over chips. There's silicone holes in it and all sorts. So I've sort of matched to the bonnet on this Porsche Boxster as best I can with the Spectro. Tweak the form a little bit. It looks a bit better. It's not going to be perfect edge to edge, but that's all we're doing on that. There's no blending. They don't want no blending done. There's no budget for blending, so we're just getting the colour as best we can. So I've sorted the colour out. So I'll get a coat of wet on first. While that's drying, it gives me time to mix my colour. By the time I mix my colour, that'll be dry enough. Be 2.5 coats of base coat. So with Mipa it's half a coat, and then I put a double coat, like a 3/4 coat on, then a drop coat when all that's dry, and then 2 coats of clear coat. And the clear coat I'll be using on this is Mipa CX2 with a HS25 hardener. So that's enough for me rabbiting on. I'm going to get the wet on wet mixed and get some paint on it. Right, that's all the base coat dried, and I've just given it a drop coat now. So how I dry it is put the booth on bake at 45 degrees, let the heat get in there, use the blowguns, dry it right out, let it cool down, and then once it's cooled down, going for the drop coat. So drop coat's at 1 bar with this paint system, and it's sort of 1 coat or 2 coats really of drop coat. So you double your distance on the effect coat, and let the paint sort of drop on top of it. So you use a full width of the fan of your spray gun, and yeah, 1 or 2 if you think it looks a little bit patchy, you can give it another one. I sort of didn't let that one dry in between that drop coat, but I'm normally sort of full trigger, and then you have to feather the trigger around certain areas and when you're blending. So I'm just going to mix a clear coat now. So Mipa CX2, which I use on the majority of the jobs that we do here. It's fast drying, it's got good gloss, and it's really efficient and economical. So yeah, mixing that with a HS25 hardener, which is a sort of middle hardener, their normal hardener, which is ideal for the temperatures we got at the moment, around 20 degrees. And yeah, spray gun I'm using on this is my X5500, and it's the 1.2i setup. Sorry, 1.20 setup I've got on that. So sort of your traditional Sata setup really. I've been using it again more actually. Been using the CC for a while, and then I went back over to that. It's faster. I think it's hell of a gun. Look at the size of the fan pattern on it. It absolutely horses the paint on there. It's fast. It's really efficient as well with material, and yeah. It puts a lovely coat on. It's got a wet spot in the middle. Everything about it, I love the fan patterns, big and even, and it's a bit better, especially on bumpers, using the O setup rather than a CC or you know, an I setup, because you can sort of get it in the little nooks and crannies a little bit better when you feather the trigger. When you're sort of going into tight spots and that, you sort of got a bit of a wetter patch in the middle of that fan, so it's easier to get in nooks and crannies. And having that straight like eye pattern, which is a bit like sort of other guns, I think of that sort of pattern, which are both good. I like the CC and I like the eye pattern as well, but yeah, I've gone back to using this gun a bit more, probably because it's a little bit faster, and it suits the speed that I spray at. I do have to adjust my speed when I use the CC gun. So yeah, I've been using this on a few jobs now. You can get runs with it a bit easier though. So yeah, you do have to be a little bit careful with it. I do wind the fluid control in. So I wind the fluid control in till I can feel resistance, so that's full trigger. And then I wind it in quarter of a turn, sometimes half a turn. And yeah, I really like the way it lays the paint on. You can just see the fan is really lit large, and and it just puts the paint on there really nice. I really get on with it well. But like I had a bit of a waffle earlier saying about you know, I haven't got other guns to show you guys that you know, that are not going to be using Satas, and you're trying to learn and you're trying to do stuff on a budget. But what I am going to do, I've sort of got all of my spray guns since when I started my career. So I've always used Sata, so I've got pretty much every generation of Sata from my first gun when I was apprenticed. Was the first original Satajet. It was just called a Satajet, and it was their first gravity fed gun, because before that I did have a suction fed gun before that, but I don't know where that went. I think I left it somewhere where I worked. So yeah, it was the first original gravity fed gun that Sata brought out. I've still got it. I had it from new when I was at college. So I'm going to resurrect that. I'm going to resurrect my original Sata, an NR95 that I've got, and an NR2000, and I'm going to do some jobs with it. So look out for those videos. They'll be coming soon once I've got them guns sorted out. And yeah, thanks for watching, really appreciate it, and hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you again in the next one. Look after yourselves. Right then, YouTube, so that's the Porsche Boxster bumper all finished now. Yeah, Reese has fitted it all back up, and it's all right. It's not too bad. I must admit the colour's not 100%, but I don't know if you can see on this bonnet, like it's all been, someone's just painted over loads of chips. So it's had the whole front end. There's like wax holes and chips everywhere. The shade's not too bad. It's just this seems a lot more sort of grainier. That you can see the metallic more in the bonnet, which is a bit of a shame. But the shade's not too bad. But the bumper come out well, come out nice and clean, and yeah, finish is all right. We haven't bothered polishing it. A couple of nibs in it, but yeah, sort of out the gun really. And it all fitted together okay. So yeah, that was good. So yeah, that's it for this video. Just a little video on painting that bumper. And yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. We'll see you again in the next one. Look after yourselves. Cheers.